Papa John's is one of the world's most popular pizza chains. For years, they've been one of the big four pizza chains. They're not as big as Domino's or Pizza Hut, but depending on the year, they've been right there in third or fourth place, doing about as well as Little Caesars. It's worth noting that Papa John's is the newest of the big four chains, having started decades after the others. If you invest $100 in Papa John's stock, whose symbol is PZZA, at the end of 2013 you would have doubled your money over the next 3 years, and then lost all of those gains over the next 2. That was a low point for them, but they have since recovered, and in some ways are looking better than ever. Their stock prices have gone up a lot since then, and their current CEO said that 2023 will be their best year ever. John Schnatter, the founder of Papa John's, says he always thought he could make better pizza than the big chains. I guess that's up to the person. But they have always made a lot of claims about the freshness and quality of the ingredients they use. When they first opened, they didn't even have chicken wings or anything else on the menu that you'd expect to find at a pizza place like that, because they were only focused on pizza. They even started putting garlic sauce in the peppers in the box to make the pizza experience even better. They also started this commissary system. Papa John's started in the 1980s, when pizza was becoming more popular. During the 1980s and 1990s, the pizza market grew faster than any other major restaurant segment. So Papa John's and many other pizza places were able to grow because there was such a growing demand for their products. By the end of the 1990s, Papa John's had almost 2,500 locations and was seen as a major threat to the pizza market. John Schnatter wanted to beat Pizza Hut and become the biggest pizza chain in the next 10 years. This didn't happen, of course, and it's been more than 2 decades, and it still hasn't happened. But it looked very likely at the time. In fact, Pizza Hut was paying attention to them because they had a whole plan to take over the world. Pizza Hut made a whole new line of pizzas to compete directly with Papa John's. Then Papa John's made a series of commercials saying that they make better pizzas than Pizza Hut. I think it's funny that one of those commercials featured one of the founders of Pizza Hut. It would become a Papa John's franchise. All of this led to lawsuits between the 2 companies, which didn't have much of an effect on either company in the end. But hey, I think it's impressive that the 2000s weren't as successful as they had hoped. Toward the end of the decade, the recession hurt sales in the restaurant industry, and fast casual restaurants took sales away from the pizza industry. Meanwhile, the cost of ingredients, especially cheese, was going up, and Papa John's was having trouble. I don't want to talk too much about this fall because it's not as exciting as the next one, but their main solution was to bring back John Schnatter as CEO, who had left in 2004. One of his biggest moves was to make a deal that made Papa John's the official pizza sponsor of the NFL, which all of that extra advertising and the economy getting better, among other things, Papa John's sales went up. In the 2010s, Papa John's grew much faster, which was a great time for them up until 2017. The next year, they reported falling sales for the first time in that decade, even though they were still opening new stores. At the same time, the net income dropped to its lowest point in decades, right after it had reached its highest point ever. Almost all of these problems were caused by statements made by John Schnatter himself. I know there's been a lot of talk about this, and it does involve politics, so let me just try to give you all the facts. Most of us have heard that the NFL players kneel during the national anthem to protest racism and police brutality in the US. Well, in a late 2017 earnings call, he basically criticized how the NFL has been handling the protest and said it was hurting the Papa John's company. After all, Papa John's was the official pizza sponsor of the NFL, so he was forced to step down as CEO in early 2018. Clearly, he did something else that angered a lot of people, and this time it was enough for him to step down as chairman. People said that the backlash against him has been exaggerated by way of his comments and been reported in the media. So I encourage you to look up what he actually said before you make a final decision. Then, about a year later, he slowly started selling his ownership in the company, which I think has been reduced from about 30 to about 4%. This ended his involvement with the company that he had started and built up over the past 30 years. It's such a sad ending. Since then, he has criticized the company's new leaders and how they're running the company and the pizzas themselves. It's almost become a joke, but I find it all pretty sad because, if people think you're racist or insensitive or whatever, they're not going to want to go to your pizza place. So to sum up, Papa John's had a bad public image. They had lost their longtime CEO, chairman, and owner. They had lost their NFL contract, and the person most associated with Papa John's was now criticizing Papa John's. I would have been surprised if things weren't falling apart at that point. But amazingly, they were able to. Papa John's has always cared about takeout and delivery, which became very popular in the 1990s. This was different from most of the other big pizza chains, which had been around for a long time and had to change. Papa John's started doing it to show that they were also ahead of the curve when it came to technology. In 2001, they were the first pizza chain to offer online ordering at all of their traditional restaurants. In 2020, when everyone wanted to order something online and have it delivered, that was their time to shine. 75% of orders were made online that year, which helped them build their Papa's Reward members and get customers to come back. Another part of their comeback has been the menu items, which they said have been the foundation of their growing sales. The Epic Stuffed Crust Pizza was originally released in 2021 as one of their most successful launches to date. Here's what I mean when I say that in August 2019, they hired a new CEO named Rob Lynch, mostly because of his experience as president of Arby's, where he was a big part of turning that company's business around. Also, your starboard value is a good indicator of how well your business is doing. LP made a deal to invest $200 million in Papa John's, and the company's CEO took over as chairman of the board. Starboard had experience helping struggling restaurants because they did something similar with Olive Garden in 2014 and saw good results. What I'm trying to say is they brought in people who had experience making comebacks, and they made a comeback. Let me know in the comments, what do you think of Papa John's? I like the peppers and the garlic sauce, but how do they compare to Pizza Hut, Domino's, or Little Caesars? Also, what do you think of John Shatner? He's a controversial figure right now, but Papa John's wouldn't exist without him. Please comment, like, and subscribe. See you soon. Thank you.